Early in January, an activist group called Resistance SF projected a sign onto Twitter headquarters in San Francisco that read, @Jack is number complicit. @Jack, of course, is Jack Dorsey, Twitter's co-founder and CEO, and complicit is what we call those seen as letting power get away with something bad. In this case, it was the way Twitter had enabled Donald Trump to troll the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un about the size of his nuclear button, causing cortisol levels to spike worldwide. Resistance SF was accusing Dorsey of abetting this kind of behavior by allowing the president an unmediated platform. Its condemnation was unequivocal, if rather anticlimactically structured. Dorsey endangers the world, it said, and allows Trump to break his company's own terms of service to do it. The range of behaviors complicit encompasses is vast. Senator Chuck Schumer recently denounced Trump's behavior on the world stage as puerile and accused Republicans who fail to speak out against him of complicity in the degradation of the presidency, but most people see no need to specify such details. It's already understood that some unspeakable abuse or deception has been abetted or let slide, whether out of self-interest or self-preservation. Ignorance or fear. Complicit came bounding back into the lexicon last year largely because of Trump, a figure whose rise to power was seen by many as so threatening to democratic institutions that they started to talk about putting country before party and joining the resistance, as if we all had suddenly been teleported into a Humphrey Bogart movie. The language harks back to World War II, when the citizens of occupied nations were sorted by their moral records, the heroes who fought with the resistance versus the Nazis' collaborators. It also channeled the Cold War. In an op-ed in the Washington Post, Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona invoked Joseph Welch, the chief counsel for the Army who famously confronted Joseph McCarthy, in denouncing fellow Republicans who defend President Trump. Complicit signaled a challenge to the ethos that all is fair in love and war and business and politics. I have children and grandchildren to answer to, Flake said in October, announcing his retirement, and thus his willingness to speak frankly. I will not be complicit or silent. A month later, an expose on Harvey Weinstein in the New York Times described how he conscripted others to enable his abuse. Harvey Weinstein built his complicity machine out of the witting, the unwitting and those in between. What's become clear is that there is a lot of in between. It takes a lot of fixers and enablers, a lot of toadies and apologists and attack dogs, to create an atmosphere in which people can mistreat others with impunity. That is precisely the kind of apparatus that is, lately, under sustained attack, not just the villain but anyone who can be said to have cleared the villain's path. The broad brush of complicity can be used in an attempt to tar almost anyone. Just ask any public figure unfortunate enough to have been photographed smiling next to Weinstein. It can even be used maliciously. Late last year, right-wing street artists placed posters around LA featuring an image of Weinstein with Meryl Streep, along with the words "she knew." But the point is that complicity is systemic. It doesn't just describe individual bad actors, it indicts the whole production. Complicit traces back to the French complice, a partner or associate, which derives from the Latin complex, which means folded together, as in the ingredients of a cake. It also means complex. There are so many ways to be complicit that you could make trading cards and never collect them all. You can be complicit through action or inaction, speech or silence, association or omission. You can engage in outright collusion, aiding in wrongdoing and lying your way through the cover-up. You can take advantage of an immoral situation to promote your book or your brand. But you can also feel coerced into complicity, intimidated or brainwashed. You can look the other way because you fear for your job or your reputation, or because you refuse to feel responsible for the systems around you. Complicity can be synonymous with collusion, but where collusion describes an action, complicity describes a state of being. It is buttery and passive, a path of least resistance. Complicity often calls for pretending not to know what you know, not to see what you see, playing dumb for the sake of getting along, preserving the comforts of the status quo. As a moral, non-stance, it clears the way for everything from bad manners to genocide. Take, for example, the opioid crisis, which we learn from a recent Washington Post article as a result of a corrupt system peopled with rogue doctors and complicit pharmacists. The Flint water crisis, lawsuits claim, is a result of the complicit state of Michigan trying to save money by switching the city's water source and the complicit city of Flint failing to act as corroded pipes leached lead into the water. In November, Dictionary.com selected complicit as its word of the year. Its number of searches had spiked in April, when Ivanka Trump told CBS This Morning that "I don't know what it means to be complicit." For a moment, it was unclear whether she didn't know what the word meant or whether she was skirting the issue. It's possible she was simply rejecting the concept itself. Early in the year, some Democrats looked to her to be a voice of moderation to keep her father at least marginally connected to the values of the socially liberal cosmopolitan women to whom she had carefully positioned herself as a peer. By March she was the subject of a Saturday Night Live parody commercial for a scent called Complicit, the fragrance for the woman who could stop all this, but won't. Could, but won't, is where complicity lives. Recently, Twitter erupted in response to rumors that Harper's Magazine was planning to reveal the creator of a spreadsheet, passed around media circles, collecting anonymous claims of sexual harassment and abuse within the industry. The backlash was instant, an outpouring of support that might have played a part in motivating Moira Donegan, the spreadsheet's creator, to reveal herself in a blistering essay on The Cut. "A lot of us are angry in this moment," she wrote near the end of the piece, "not just at what happened to us but at the realization of the depth and frequency of these behaviors and the ways that so many of us have been drafted, wittingly and unwittingly, into complicity. But we're being challenged to imagine how we would prefer things to be. To break out of complicity and silence is to imagine something different, to reckon forcefully with the notion that there is such a thing as a right side and a wrong one." In 2002, Roger Silverstone, the pioneering media scholar at the London School of Economics, published an essay called Complicity and Collusion in the Mediation of Everyday Life, in which he argued that our sense of reality is created by two groups of people: those who produce media and those who consume it. Audiences, he argued, are never quite as passive as they're made out to be. They are active participants in the creation and perpetuation of a shared reality. If we take everyday life as a moral and social space in which our common humanity is created and sustained, then we must take responsibility not only for what we produce and put into the world but also for how we consume passively and mindlessly, or actively and critically. Both, Silverstone said, have moral consequences. When we allow lies, misrepresentations and deception to go unchallenged, we become complicit in trading reality for falsehood. By accepting a system in which the powerful can twist reality into some shape that's convenient to them, and the images and media we see every day reflect that, then they both fail us, and crucially, we them. Silverstone was writing in 2002, but he might as well have been foreseeing the current moment. He described a culture built on bad faith representations of other people. He described our uncritical acceptance of those representations. And he argued, persuasively, that this acceptance has moral consequences. Knowing but pretending not to know, declining to fully grasp or care about what we've witnessed, playing dumb for the sake of getting along, of preserving the familiar status quo, these are the same strategies that allowed a culture of workplace abuse and harassment, notably in Hollywood but also everywhere else, to continue unchecked. The reason we hear complicit so often now is a matter of tolerance. The more abuse we see uncovered, the less patience we can summon for its enablers. The difficulty, as ever, is sorting out how much can be expected of any of us. Is Dorsey complicit? Is Streep? Does asking these questions even help? Complicity can be found in nearly every action or inaction, every utterance, or failure to speak. What's clear is that many seem more eager than ever to hunt it down, whether in ourselves or in others, and collapse whatever wrong it supported.